Summer's almost over. Let's see if the sunlight stays, I guess. It's supposed to rain actually later in the week. And with that in mind, what did I read today? It's kind of interesting with all those news recently of, I guess, drones flying around sensitive areas and all that. You'd read more stories on countermeasures. How about this one? When apparently people were assuming GPS jammers were being used and it's basically affecting everything. It made me ask before too, when you use stuff like this, how do you target it on specific objects only? This one says, massive GPS jamming observed around Israel. Are anti-drone weapons to blame? The skies over the eastern Mediterranean region, including Israel, are a hotspot of GPS jamming, new publicly available data shows. The GPS interference is felt mostly along Turkey's southern coast, Syria, Lebanon, Cyprus, and Israel. In past occurrences, it was thought that the Russian military systems in Syria were the cause of the disruptions, but it is also possible that Israeli systems have contributed to the effect too. The jamming of the satellite-based global positioning system has increased recently 3 years after the phenomenon first appeared in the region. And I guess this is the assumption part. It says the European Organizations for the Safety of Air Navigation said it is likely that the jamming comes from the use of anti-drone systems. In response to a query from Haaretz as to whether Israel operates various means to jam GPS systems to prevent Iranian drone attacks, the IDF said it, quote, acts in a number of dimensions against diverse threats on all fronts. There are many other groups in the region that act in a variety of ways to defend themselves, along with Israel. It seems kind of, I guess, dancing around the topic, but I wouldn't doubt if they were using it. And I guess just as an example of GPS jamming, they're talking about incidents in the past where because signals were blocked, when you try checking things like airline flights, they'll be, I guess, everywhere. So again, how do you actually narrow it down to just one thing? I guess you can't in these cases, huh? And this was kind of an odd news read. If I'm understanding this correctly, it sounds like police or whatever were giving false information about things, for example, traffic monitoring, I guess, as a way to scare people from speeding, and I guess is creating kind of an outrage. This one says, Surrey police accused of using phantom traffic units on Waze app. Force says tactic is easy way to get drivers to slow down after budget cuts reduce traffic policing numbers. Surrey's police force has been accused of operating, quote, phantom units after traffic officers admitted to providing misleading data to a sat-nav app. Officers said on Twitter that they falsely reported their locations as stationary on the Waze traffic app, which suggests they may be operating a speed trap when they were in fact driving. Surrey police claimed the tactics, quote, works perfectly by encouraging drivers to slow down and adding that major cuts to policing budgets over the years had decimated traffic units across the country. I believe it's the post here. It says it's by Roads Policing Surrey Police UK. We definitely don't drop police markers on Waze at random points on our patrol. Nope, never. Winking smiley face. It says an easy way to get drivers to slow down our roads. Thanks, Waze. So would you consider that really bad where they're faking it per se? I know it's one of those things too where if you keep lying about stuff like this, then eventually people just, I guess, will just ignore it in general, but that's kind of bad, isn't it? Especially if you're an authority figure, misleading people about various information. I would have thought, ironically, that in itself would be a crime of sort, isn't it? If you're an official misleading people in that way. And I read this today where it was expected, honestly, where in recent times, as you may all know, Hong Kong had that, I guess, security law implemented where fundamentally anybody who criticizes the government or whatever, they could be considered as, I don't know, like a terrorist or something like that. And anyone, anywhere in the world talking bad about them, they could be, I guess, held under criminal conviction, so to speak. Like, how's this one here? This one says, Hong Kong says it can target anyone in the world after Vancouver journalists charged. Hong Kong says it will prosecute anyone who violates the city's widely condemned national security law, regardless of their background or where they're located. So what's the story here, huh? It says earlier this month, the Hong Kong Security Bureau announced it was charging Ho, a longtime Canadian citizen and retired newspaper editor, and 2 U.S. residents with breach of security laws subversion section. Their offense was to spearhead a Toronto-based plan to set up a sort of parliament in exile for Hong Kong, chosen by online elections involving residents of the enclave and its diaspora in other countries. Quote, acts and activities that endanger national security have very serious consequences, and hence Actions must be taken to prevent and suppress such acts and activities to ensure that individuals endangering national security will face legal consequences. How crazy is that? The person could literally not even live there, just criticize it, say, oh, I don't like this system, and now you're considered, I don't know, a terrorist or something like that, and they demand like your country or whatever, send them over. Although, according to this, a lot of people are saying they can't really do much. The only real way they can do anything is they would have to go and kidnap the person, for example. And they clarify that point here. It says, the law's Article 38 says it can apply to offenses committed, quote, from outside the region by a person who is not a permanent resident of the region. The charges against Ho and 2 others may mark the first use of the section. The BC journalists urge top federal leaders to make a clear statement decrying the actions. That is crazy. What would you think about that? Is this like a hidden sanctuary here? Alright, see you guys later.